And welcome back to Zangeki no Reginleiv, and we are going to follow Freya's trek south. I know they said one was going north and the other was going south, but really they're both going to the same place. It's just one's following the coast, one's further inland. So Freya is following Sigmund and Helgi as they're heading toward the fortress where Belend has already gone. And for this mission, we are going to follow them down the path and lead them in. However, I am actually going to start off this mission by not following them and in fact moving in the opposite direction. And you might already be able to tell where this is going. First of all, there's only so far I can go before I eventually hit an invisible wall. But the reason I'm doing this is that eventually giants are going to spawn behind Sigmund and Helgi and chase them toward the fortress. But we're just starting off behind them. Now this is actually kind of a bad spot to be in. Like, I wanted to kill some of the smaller giants and then dash through them to the other side, because you can easily get yourself cornered using that strategy. But now I'm going to put some distance between myself and test out Air's bow, which is fantastic. Look at all these arrows I can fire at once, and which have homing capabilities to specific limbs and body parts of the larger giants. The only catch is, it's very light homing, and when the arrows fire, they fire out in a spread. So you have to put a little distance between yourself and your target, otherwise your arrow can shoot past it and just circle around it endlessly. Another thing to make sure of, if you're using a greatsword, compensate for the cooldown after you do an attack. That's my one big problem with the greatsword. Otherwise, I like it as a weapon. But similar to Freya's regular bow, which has the homing ability, you can home in on the same target multiple times. So I'm trying to use that to my advantage by going for multiple headshots. And speaking of, was that a decap? I think that was a decap. I'll be able to tell in a moment when I dash through there. Alright, I think I've dragged this part on long enough. The horde has thinned out significantly. That's what kind of sucks, is even though the smaller giants don't do a lot of damage, when you get to later parts of the game, they're mostly there to stun lock you so that you'll get hit by the larger, slower attacks. That's the case for, well, this part of this mission, and it's going to be a significant part of the mission after this with Frey. Even so, I'm not particularly worried about health at the... Okay, I'm a little worried about health at this moment. The one drawback to this bow is that, like most of Freya's bows, it does take up some of her magic, so you do need to switch to your standard melee weapon and defeat a few giants that way, if you want to keep using it. Otherwise, I do, in spite of that goofiness with it just circling around the giants, I do like this more than Thor's bow with Frey. Case in point, all that Decapitation. Now, I said before that the villagers were just running ahead, trying to get to the fortress. They've actually been at the fortress for quite some time. But the doors to the fortress will not open up until you're within a certain proximity of them. And the good thing is, starting off behind the giants, that stops them from chasing the group. So you'll have pretty much everybody here and ready for the next phase. And you cannot go into the fort yet, because that was merely one wave. We have much, much more on the horizon. And when I say much more on the horizon, I'm not just referring to this small group of giants. There's something else after this, but I don't want to spoil what it is yet. And I actually kind of goofed up here because I really wanted to have more mana on hand so that I could use the bow a little more. But I can still make this work. And as you can see, the gates open, Velon comes out. Seems like everything's falling into place, but we have another wave to deal with. And it's going to come relatively soon. It has to go through some dialogue sequences first. There we are. Yeah, we are dealing with airborne enemies now. These particular enemies are lindworms. You can hit them from a distance, but I'm going to try not to do that because, well, they'll drop crystals on the mountain and I won't be able to reach them. They move at a moderate pace and they spit fire at you, which, if it stacks up, it can do a lot of damage, but it mostly just prevents you from moving. They will fly right up close to you, which I'm actually trying to use to my advantage so I can get mana for my bow. Now, in addition to being quite annoying, these really are best dealt with at a distance. They do drop a type of crystal that we haven't seen yet. That being the wind crystal. And I'll see if I can find a good shot of one on the ground. It basically looks exactly like you would expect a wind crystal to look. Oh, there you just saw one. It's the one with the 4 points, looks kind of curled at the end. Don't worry, you'll see plenty more of them if you didn't catch a glimpse of it before. And, okay, the camera is trying to show that there are other things flying through the sky coming toward the villagers. And these are a new type of giant, I guess I could say. These are magicians. They fly through the air, and as such, most of the time you cannot hit them with regular hand-to-hand melee weapons. So you're going to be relying a lot on either Freya's magic rods, or scepters, or bows. These function kind of similar to the medium and larger giants, in that they have limbs they can hit, and they can be decapitated, like that one. But you really want to deal with these as soon as you possibly can. Because, as they just demonstrated, they can spawn lindworms. And they will do that at a regular rate. So, pretty much as soon as you see these guys, you want to get them down as fast as possible. And I mentioned they can have their limbs severed. It does affect their flying a little bit, but it doesn't seem to impact their ability to spawn additional units. Because here they spawn lindworms, they can spawn other types of units as well. Although for this mission it's primarily just the lindworms. And there's a good wind crystal shot. I seem to have lost track of where I was going. There you are. Okay, this one is close to the ground, so I could hit him with just my sword if I wanted to, but I'm going for decaps. And I don't think I got it. Oh well. I did get one of the arms, though, because there were plenty of water crystals on the ground. Yeah, and unlike several other missions, as soon as you clear off all the enemies, you don't have to wait for dialogue trees. The game just says the level's over, and you go to this screen. It looks like we have a decent amount of all the crystals. Got our first wind crystals, even got a few earth crystals. Now before I move ahead to the next spot, I want to take a look at this foraging tree because I think that I'm getting a little... Yes, this is a little lopsided, so I'm going to focus more on Frey's side of the tree for now. And I'm going to go ahead and forge this. This is Forseti's Godly Spear. It's not nearly as impressive as it sounds. And I'll also forge this, and it's going to sound weird when I say what this is called, but it's the best way I can think to say it. The Strafe Bow. You'll see why it has that name when I use it in a mission. Okay, so the weapons tree is evened out a bit, so I'm going to switch back to Frey, and I'm going to equip him with both of the weapons that I just forged. Although, actually, by doing so, I'm going to make the next mission way harder on myself than it would be normally. And it's not just going to be because of the weapons. Freya is actually much simpler to do this mission with because of the weapons that she has available to her at this point. But that's not going to stop me from continuing to alternate characters and play this next one as Frey. However, I am reaching the point where I'm finally going to start properly taking advantage of the ability to boost my character's health. So next time on Zangeki no Reginleiv, what am I getting myself into with Frey?